On the hot, restless nights of late 1960s Los Angeles, a darkness festered in the hills, masked by the sheen of Hollywood dreams and flower power rebellion. It was a darkness with a face that would become one of the most infamous in American history. Charles Manson, with his wild eyes and messianic fervor, embodied a nightmare that few could have imagined. In this video, we'll delve into the life and mind of Charles Manson, a journey that will take us through manipulation, madness, and violence. A journey where the line between charisma and cruelty blurs into something unrecognizably evil. Manson was born in 1934, the unwanted child of a 16-year-old girl who drifted through a life of petty crime and instability. His early years were marked by neglect, abuse, and a revolving door of foster homes and juvenile facilities. By his teens, Manson had already committed a string of petty crimes, beginning a lifelong pattern of incarceration and rebellion against authority. But even in these formative years, a telling trait emerged: his uncanny ability to manipulate those around him. What drove this need for control? Psychologists might suggest that Manson's turbulent upbringing instilled in him a profound sense of powerlessness. Fast forward to 1967. The Summer of Love had turned San Francisco into a haven for hippies, seekers, and outcasts. It was here, amidst the freewheeling chaos of Haight-Ashbury, that Manson began assembling his family, a ragtag group of young men and women searching for meaning in an increasingly fragmented world. This group included Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten, Tex Watson, and others, each with their own vulnerabilities and reasons for falling under Manson's sway. Susan Atkins, a high school dropout with a troubled upbringing, had worked as a dancer before encountering Manson. Her longing for acceptance and direction made her an easy target for Manson's manipulative charm. Atkins, later known as Sadie Mae Glutz within the group, became one of his most devoted followers and played a key role in the Tate LaBianca murders. Patricia Krenwinkel, a quiet and self-conscious young woman, struggled with low self-esteem and feelings of alienation. Manson's validation and promises of love gave her a sense of belonging she had never experienced. Despite her initial hesitations, Krenwinkel became deeply involved in Manson's violent schemes, later confessing to her actions with chilling detail. Leslie Van Houten, the youngest of the group, was a former homecoming princess whose life took a dark turn after experimenting with drugs and experiencing familial instability. Van Houten was drawn to Manson's apocalyptic vision and became a participant in the LaBianca murders, a decision she later described as deeply regretful. Tex Watson, born Charles Denton Watson, was a charismatic Texan and former athlete who had moved to California in search of a freer lifestyle. He became one of Manson's most trusted followers, ultimately serving as the key enforcer of Manson's violent commands during the murders. Watson's intelligence and capability made him an especially dangerous extension of Manson's will. These individuals, along with others in the Manson family, each brought their own histories of trauma, insecurity, and disconnection to the group. Manson identified these fractures and exploited them, creating a cult dynamic where loyalty to him outweighed morality, individuality, and even the value of human life. But beneath the surface of his charm lay something far more sinister. Manson's rhetoric, often couched in New Age jargon, hinted at a violent undercurrent, a desire to dismantle the existing social order by any means necessary. What set Manson apart from countless other would-be gurus was his ability to identify and exploit vulnerabilities. He preyed on those with fractured identities, individuals whose sense of self had been eroded by neglect, abuse, or societal rejection. To his family, he was more than a leader. He was a savior, a father figure, even a god. He fostered dependence by breaking down their individuality, isolating them from their families and subjecting them to a relentless cycle of psychological conditioning. Yet even as Manson exerted control over his followers, he fed them a steady diet of drugs and grandiose delusions. How did these young men and women, many from privileged middle-class backgrounds, come to believe that Manson's vision of chaos and violence was their destiny? By 1969, Manson's ideology had crystallized into a dark prophecy he called Helter Skelter. This concept was a bizarre fusion of apocalyptic theology, racial paranoia, and twisted interpretations of pop culture. At this point, Manson and his family would emerge from hiding in the desert to take control of the post-apocalyptic world. Central to Manson's philosophy was the idea that society's traditional structures were corrupt and doomed to collapse. He preached that the counterculture movement was the key to dismantling these systems, but he warped this ideology into a justification for violence. To his followers, Manson framed murder as an act of rebellion and enlightenment, a necessary step in fulfilling the cosmic destiny he claimed to foresee. Yet, beneath the layers of racial and apocalyptic rhetoric, Manson's philosophy revealed a darker truth: his need for control. By positioning himself as the sole interpreter of Helter Skelter, he maintained an iron grip over his followers. The vagueness of his predictions allowed him to adjust his teachings to fit any situation, keeping his followers perpetually reliant on him for guidance. The night of August 8, 1969, marked the beginning of Manson's most infamous chapter. Under his orders, several family members drove to 10050 Cielo Drive, the home of actress Sharon Tate. What unfolded that night and the next remains one of the most shocking and senseless acts of violence in American history. Sharon Tate, the radiant actress best known for her role in Valley of the Dolls, was 8 months pregnant with her first child. Married to director Roman Polanski, Tate's life represented the pinnacle of Hollywood success and glamour. Yet on that fateful night, her home became a scene of unimaginable horror. Tate pleaded for the life of her unborn child, but her cries fell on deaf ears. Jay Sebring, a renowned hairstylist and close friend of Sharon Tate, was another victim that night. Known for his charm and groundbreaking work in men's grooming, Sebring had introduced a new level of sophistication to Hollywood style. Despite his success, he met a brutal end at the hands of Manson's followers, who showed no mercy even as he attempted to shield Tate from harm. Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folger coffee fortune, had dedicated her life to philanthropy and social justice. She spent her days volunteering with underprivileged children and supporting civil rights causes. Yet her compassion and privilege offered no protection. She was stabbed repeatedly, her final moments filled with terror as she tried to flee her attackers. Wojciech Frykowski, a Polish film director and friend of Polanski, was another victim of that night's carnage. Frykowski had come to America seeking creative opportunities, but his life was cut short in a barrage of violence that saw him bludgeoned, stabbed, and shot. His gruesome death highlighted the sheer brutality of Manson's followers, who acted without hesitation or remorse. Stephen Parent, an 18-year-old visiting the property's caretaker, was the final victim at Cielo Drive. A young man with his whole life ahead of him, Parent had no connection to the others, but was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was shot multiple times as he tried to leave the property, an innocent casualty in a night of madness. The following night, the carnage continued with the murders of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. Leno, a successful supermarket executive, was known for his dedication to his work and his commitment to providing for his family. Rosemary, a vibrant and entrepreneurial woman, co-owned a boutique clothing store and was admired for her creativity and warm spirit. The killers then used their blood to scrawl words like "death to pigs" and "rise" on the walls, grotesquely linking these murders to Manson's apocalyptic vision. In total, the Manson family claimed 9 victims over a span of 5 weeks. How could these young followers, many of whom had never exhibited violent tendencies, commit such gruesome acts? Was it blind loyalty, the effects of prolonged drug use, or something darker, the erosion of their moral compasses under Manson's influence? The psychological grip Manson exerted on his followers is a study in manipulation and control. He used a combination of manipulation, isolation, and fear to create an environment where his word was law. Did they act out of genuine belief in his vision, or were they prisoners of a psychological trap they couldn't escape? Manson's trial was as much a spectacle as his crimes. The prosecution, led by Vincent Bugliosi, painted him as a manipulative puppet master who wielded absolute control over his followers. Manson, ever the showman, carved an X into his forehead on the first day of the trial, declaring that he had removed himself from society. In the courtroom, the evidence presented was chilling. Testimonies from former followers, including Linda Kasabian, who acted as a key witness, painted a picture of Manson's manipulation and control. Her testimony was instrumental in linking Manson directly to the crimes, despite his attempts to deny involvement. Manson's erratic behavior in court added to the trial's infamy. He often interrupted proceedings, made bizarre statements, and at one point lunged at the judge, requiring physical restraint. These antics, while unsettling, also reinforced the prosecution's argument that Manson was a dangerous and manipulative individual. The jury deliberated for 9 days before delivering a guilty verdict for Manson and several of his key followers. In March 1971, Manson was sentenced to death, though his sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment after California abolished the death penalty in 1972. Despite his conviction, Manson's grip on the public's imagination remained strong as he continued to give interviews from prison, spouting the same apocalyptic rhetoric and refusing to show remorse. The trial not only secured justice for the victims, but also offered a sobering insight into the power of charismatic manipulation. It left the nation grappling with questions about free will, moral responsibility, and the vulnerabilities that cult leaders exploit. Even decades later, the Manson trial remains a haunting reminder of how easily a charismatic figure can wield destruction. As we delve deeper into Manson's psyche, we confront unsettling questions about the nature of evil and the fragility of the human mind. Was Manson a master manipulator, fully aware of the harm he inflicted, or was he a product of his environment, a damaged individual whose unchecked delusions spiraled into violence? Psychologists have debated whether Manson exhibited traits of psychopathy, sociopathy, or narcissistic personality disorder. His lack of empathy, grandiose sense of self, and inability to form genuine emotional connections align with these diagnoses. In the years following his conviction, Manson became a symbol of countercultural disillusionment and the darker side of human nature. His image, with its wild eyes and cryptic swastika tattoo, became a fixture in the public imagination. But even as Manson faded into the obscurity of prison life, his legacy continued to haunt us. Let us know if you enjoyed this video. Also, let us know in the comments what historical figures you'd like us to profile next. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like these.